Hello everyone, this video is about building your own criteria, and the idea of this video came because I was reading a book this morning when I was having some coffee, and I really like the information of the book, but I don't agree with something that the writer said. And this is exactly what criteria means. I'm going to talk about criteria, what it means, and also why it's important nowadays. And especially with all this information era, with everyone saying different things and contradictory things, and we are always going to find information against and information in favor, or some argument, some idea, some opinion. So it's very important that you build your own criteria, and I'm also going to talk about how to build that criteria. So interestingly, criteria has to do with the sense of self. It has to do with your inner voice, and has to do with your values. So having criteria means being able to decide what's true to you, right? And in order to do that, you need to know who you are. You need to know your inner voice. You need to know your values. You need to know your boundaries. You need to know what's good for you. And I think criteria ultimately has to do with choosing things that are good for you. Especially, we'll see in relationships. How many of us hold into relationships that are not doing good to us, especially with family members, right? We keep on having this contact with family members that don't do good to us. I'm not saying to cut off all your family members, but especially nowadays that everyone is kind of awakening and finding their own path, and that own path is sometimes contradictory or goes against all of the things you've learned in your roots, because it's meant to open a new path. It's meant to resolve all the traumas, all the fears, all the limiting behaviors that your roots have hold onto, and that usually means breaking with old things. And it's all this era. It's all about breaking with old patterns and starting new paths, more with liberation, with freedom. So with family members may be very complicated, very challenging to maintain a connection because you're on a new path. That doesn't mean that you have to block them, or that doesn't mean that you have to, don't have a relationship with them. But you need to hold your boundaries. You need to know how to communicate in a way that nobody's giving you the opinions or changing your perspectives. Anyways, I will do a video about family if you like. Let's go back to the criteria and define it again as knowing what is good for me, knowing what's healthy for me. And again, it's mainly about relationships, but as well, especially when I read something in a book or I hear someone talk, it's very important to understand that, yes, I can listen to that person, but it doesn't mean that that person is saying something that is true for me, right? Especially when we have a figure, an authority in any space, we think that anything that person says is true, right? If we have an authority, for example, on business, and we listen to what that person says, and that person says that you should do this or that, that doesn't mean that that is true for you. You can take that information, you can process it, and then realize or use your criteria to think, okay, is this for me or not? One way to develop the criteria is knowing your values, right? What are your values? Most people don't know what their values are, and this is a very important exercise that you need to nurture. And this is something that we work on my brand, especially with relationships, checking in with your partner if you have the same values. For that, you need to know what your values are. Your values at the end are things that you value, that are valuable to you. That's why those are your values. So your values should be non-negotiables. Like anything that doesn't hold to your values or align to your values should not be on your life, because are things that you value. If you hold relationships, if you hold things in your life that are not aligned to your values, you are having things that you don't value. That is already telling you a lot about yourself and your self-love, right? As soon as I'm very clear on my values, and that will take time, values are things that can change. There should be a core identity for you. So it's very hard to change values. I think when we start this journey of understanding ourselves and we start learning about ourselves and what is good for us, we find that there are specific values that are non-negotiables to us, and that is like a core thing. Very difficult. I wouldn't say, I don't like the word difficult, but I think it's something that in order to shift, there needs to happen like a very important life event that really shakes your reality, so you change your values. But at the end, for example, I'm going to put examples, but I don't want to bias you. Again, you have to use your criteria. But for example, for me, integrity is one of my values. Communication is one of my values. Honesty is one of my values. Like all these things need to be checked when I meet someone, when I do something myself, right? So that I think is a great step to know, okay, I value this because this is healthy for me, right? And then act accordingly. As soon as we, so what is the downside of or the shadow side of criteria? And the shadow side of criteria is actually vanity, right? Vanity has to do with taking a mask, being someone else that you aren't, so you can please others, so you can get that external validation that you're not giving yourself. And when you're vain, when you are having that vanity, which is wearing a mask that is not the authentic you, of course, it's very hard to give criteria, because you're gonna just change your appearance accordingly to what is being asked for you by the outside world. And that is a very dangerous game to play, because you're gonna lose yourself at the end. So building your own criteria is also tapping into your own authenticity. It's tapping onto who you are. It's tapping onto your inner voice. And interestingly enough as well, the highest frequency of criteria is purity, which is being yourself, this pure light that you are, right? So there you go. You have a great reflection about criteria. I think that I know from the Gene Keys that the highest frequency of criteria is purity. So the conclusion of the video is how important it is nowadays to build these criteria, to know what's good for you, because we have massive distortion, we have massive information, we have so many things that are calling our attention. We have many people speaking about the same thing from different perspectives, and we have also in artificial intelligence that's gonna take what the world says, not what the world says, but the fonts, the sources of information that are privileged or are defended by the authorities, and it's gonna take that information as the truth. And we really need to develop this criteria of what information is for me and what information is not for me. And I think it's one of the toolkits that we need to develop and nurture as we go through the years, because not everybody is for us, not everything is for us. And as soon as we develop criteria, we also are able to clean our life. I think most of my journey has been to clean. And when I say clean, means cleaning your house, cleaning your relationships, cleaning your space, cleaning your soul, cleaning your body, cleansing your body, right? And that is actually getting into this purity state, right? A pure crystal. I have some crystals there. You can see. I was putting in the full moon. It's about getting into this pure crystal, this pure being which can be transparent. Transparency has to do with the purity thing. Anyways, yes, getting back to this criteria. If we don't have criteria, we're gonna be lost, because this vanity, this being and adapting our identity, what we do, what we are, into the external, is never gonna be a place of fulfillment. Actually, it's gonna be always a place of unfulfillment, because I cannot rely on the outside opinion. I cannot rely on the outside world to build an own identity. I have to rely on my inner truth, my connection to God. I really like that word. My connection to God and relation to connection to my inner truth, and then acting accordingly to that. Not acting accordingly to what others will say or what the society expects from us. That's never gonna come to a place of fulfillment. And I think for me, what works is looking for fulfillment, looking for peace, and those are two things that I really strive for, like fulfillment and peace. Those are the two words that I always encourage. I will make another video about this. So, building your own criteria is such an important part of your journey, and that's the video of today.